Hello and welcome to Psychology 455, Family Systems Dynamics. I am Dr. Brittany Alishire, and I will be your guide as we explore the exciting area of family therapy over the course of the next 8 weeks. I'd like to record this video in order to give you guys a brief introduction to the class. I'm going to go over some important elements of the Blackboard course shell that I think that would be beneficial for you to know about, and perhaps if you hadn't already clicked through it, this might help guide you a little bit. And I'm also going to touch on a few of the topics that you will be reading about this week, just to serve as a brief overview so that you guys start to get into the material and start thinking about the concepts as you read and begin to think about the concepts of family therapy this week. I'm going to start by going over our Blackboard course shell. What I would like to do, let me go ahead and pull that up here. So first what I'm going to do is give you guys a little bit of a review. I'm going to give you a quick tour of the Blackboard course shell. I want to pay special attention to the Preparing for Class tab, the Course Information tab, your weekly to-do list, the overall assignment due dates for this class, your discussion board, and the lecture and additional resources folder. Let me go ahead and pull up your Blackboard course shell now. So this is what your Blackboard course shell should look like when you go to click on it inside Blackboard. For those of you guys that aren't familiar with it, this is your week 1 Blackboard course shell. Here on the left-hand side, you're going to see the weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can find the assignments and the readings and all of the course tips and tricks by clicking on those week 1, 2, and 3 tabs there on the left-hand side. Importantly and unique to this class is a Preparing for Class tab right here. This link, when you click on it, is going to give you a lot of information and guidelines for utilizing the electronic media that we use in Brandman University, some general tips and tricks for guidelines for being a student. I particularly like these What Every Student Should Know guides. They were kind of things that I wish I would have had when I was a student, but really kind of gives you some basic information and study tools that you can use as a student. Using Blackboard, this is a link that is also under your week 1 tab, and this link gives you some basic video links and tutorials about how to utilize the Blackboard Learning Management software. Submitting your assignments, viewing your grades, viewing instructor feedback, those are all really important elements of our course this term so that you can engage more fully with the Blackboard tool. There's also information about academic writing, how to engage in research, and basic netiquette information. Since we are in an online class, it's important to consider the netiquette that we use when we communicate with one another. Feel free to go through all of those at your own leisure and perhaps save the information for later onto your computer, but all of those are important elements that I wanted to draw your attention to that help you to prepare and get the most out of your online classes. The course information for Psychology 455 and for all of your courses is under your Course Information tab. There's a welcome to your class, there's a little bit about me. You guys should have gotten that information on your announcements as well. But you also have the course syllabus located here. That's going to go through all of the information, grading criteria, assignments, and an overview for your class as a whole. The rubrics and guidelines for your individual information is also found here. You can download those as PDFs and review them. This link is to a video library for Alexander Street. This is a unique resource to Brandon University, and it provides links to videos of professionals and really amazing theorists in the field actually doing therapy. So there are theory videos, there are vignette videos, there are role play videos, all of the videos that are available. If you click this link, I've already gone ahead and searched family therapy. It's the only way I can find out how to put the link in there for you. But it will pull up all the videos for family therapy, and you can do an individual link, search in Alexander Street once you're logged in. So feel free to use that. It's a great resource if you're interested in psychology. You want to know what it looks like when people are doing therapy. Some of the masters are doing therapy. They're old videos, so just to give you a warning, you might want to skip through some of the pieces where they kind of talk a lot, and some of the videos are really long, but I hope that it's helpful for you guys. Here are some documents that are also helpful. Information on plagiarism, general information on critical thinking, general information on APA format. These are all academic areas that that you should consider pretty much in any of the classes that you take in your undergraduate education. But how to be successful online, how to access feedback from your instructor, those kinds of things. I think all of those things are really important, and some of the areas that students just have questions about or never really received any direct guidance on. So I hope that that is also helpful for you guys. And finally, we have the career services link. This is also a unique element to Brandon University. If you are considering a career in psychology or a career, whatever your career is that you're considering at Brandon University, you can go to the Brandon's Office of Career Planning and Development and gain resources about the career opportunities that are out there for in the area that you are interested in. The Career Services Department offers career coaching, so you can meet with a career coach to explore the different career paths that are potentially available. Career Link creates a profile and a professional portfolio that showcases the skills that you gained to potential employers. And also the Career Services general webpage, where you can go to find out some general information about how the career services offering might be helpful to you. It does resumes, curriculum vitae, and in-person appointments, which I think is also really valuable, and it's basically career guidance. So here is your link for your announcements. You guys should have all been getting your course announcements. You may be used to seeing them on your initial page, or maybe you just read them in your email, but they're also found here. All of the announcements for the course over the course of the term will be listed here. You can see some of the announcements that I have already posted for you. And so if you have any questions, there's also, my contact information is located in the announcements. And there's also links and downloads and things that you can access over the course of the term through the course announcements. And finally, that leads us up to week 1. I'm sure you guys have gotten a chance to hopefully review at least the Blackboard course shell at this point. This week you are focused on kind of introducing yourself to the class, getting an overview, make sure that you read the syllabus so that you know what the expectations are over the course of the term. Participate in that Blackboard training. Click on that Blackboard link and get some more information about Blackboard if you're unfamiliar with any of those things that I mentioned earlier. We're also going to be reviewing the key concepts from chapters 1, 2, and 3 in your course textbook, and you are responsible for participating in a group discussion this week as well. So my recommended to-do list, or to be completed this week, are the following items. Review the information provided in the Preparing for Class and the Course Information tabs. They're on the left-hand side that I showed you. Review your syllabus and the course policies document. That's going to come up here if we scroll down a little bit. Complete your weekly reading assignments. I suggest that you try to complete your reading prior to making your discussion board post, just because if you want to cite any of the information that you found or tie in the information that's provided in the textbook, then you're able to do that in your Blackboard, your discussion board posting. And participate in your weekly discussion board. So your weekly discussion board is due, but the first main post is due by Wednesday at midnight, and then you're responsible for doing 2 response posts that are due by Sunday at midnight. Each of the discussion board participations as a whole is worth 50 points total. So each time you do a discussion board, you'll be getting 50 points. You can earn 50 points possible. The grading is done by the rubric, and we'll also go over that a little bit as well. I went ahead and looked up all of the due dates that are going to be upcoming here for Spring 1 and the major assignments that are due. The first assignment that's going to be due is the course policies acknowledgement. I'll go over that briefly, but that's going to be due on Sunday, and it's worth 10 points. It's 10 easy points. Make sure you write your name in there by the end of the week. Review those course policies. Ask me any questions that you have. Clarify any issues that you're unsure about, and get in touch with me. I'm here. I'm available, and I'd love to hear from you. There are 5 discussion board posts there, so that means that of the 8 weeks, only 5 of those weeks you'll be participating in discussion board. You have a scavenger hunt that's going to be due at the end of the term, and your final paper and your PowerPoint assignment that are all going to be due on February 30th. The total points for this class is 510 points, so you can track your points as you go along and keep track of how you're doing. So I have attached all of the course policies that are in effect for this class over the course of the term. You can go ahead and read it at your leisure, download it, save it to your computer if you'd like, but it really gives a lot of detailed information about what my expectations are regarding your participation, how you are engaging in class, your attendance, how you participate in discussion boards, netiquette in general, how it is that you go about turning in work, deadlines, late work. That's an important one for those of you guys that aren't able to meet some of the deadlines that are coming up or something comes up for you. The help desk is an invaluable resource at Brandon University. If you have problems with your technology, call the help desk, ask them tell them what's going on. It's possible that they can log into your computer and guide you through how to solve any of the problems that you're having, and especially if the problems that you're having have to do with turning in assignments or your Blackboard. General email, responding to email, email attachments, grading, confidentiality, overall ethics, plagiarism. Plagiarism is an important topic. You guys need to be aware of the guidelines regarding plagiarism, just to make sure that you don't get caught up in any type of potential academic integrity violation. And again, please read through it. Ask me any questions that you have. Email me. We can set up a phone call or an Adobe Connect meeting, and I'll be happy to meet with you and go over any questions that you'll have. So the readings for each week are posted under each week. And so in addition to the chapter reading, there's also this week there's also 1 attachment. Sometimes there's 2. I believe one week there's even 3. But we tried to kind of keep the reading down in the chapter reading if there are a number of attachments. But this week's reading is chapters 1, 2, and 3, and you also have some additional information on gender roles, which is really important and one of the exciting topics that we cover this week. Here's where you can locate your discussion board, and this week's posting is regarding family, culture, gender, and ethnicity. Those are the topics that we are covering in our lecture and in your reading. So make sure that you answer the initial question by Wednesday night tonight, that's tomorrow night, and then respond to at least 2 of your classmates by Sunday. Those postings, importantly, need to be posted on 2 separate days of the week. So let's say you post your main post by Wednesday night, And then you're going to need to respond with 2 other posts, but they can't be on the same day. So you can't post on Wednesday and then wait until Sunday and do all of your responses. You'll miss some credit if you do that. What I'm looking for is for you to respond more days of the week. So let's say Wednesday, then you post on Friday, and then let's say you post again on Sunday, if you're only doing the minimum of 2 responses. But research shows that when students are engaged more frequently, even for smaller periods of time over the week in their discussion board, the learning is enhanced into the material. And that's really what we're looking for. If you're curious about how your discussion board will be graded, go ahead and take a look at the rubric. It's a pretty general rubric. It comes up real small here, but you can zoom in and determine what an outstanding post looks like and make sure that your post meets all of those criteria. Finally, and right now it's hidden from students, but I'm going to be making it available as soon as I post this lecture, is the lecture and additional resources folder. This is something that I post each week. I try to make it available as early in the week as possible, so you guys have plenty of time to go over it. But basically, these are all supplemental resources that I thought might be helpful and applicable to that week's topics. So in the supplemental resources folder, all of the material in the supplemental resources folder is elective. It is not mandatory. You do not have to watch the lecture. You do not have to download the lecture notes. You do not have to read the articles if I include any or watch any of the videos. They are all just meant to enhance your learning if you find yourself really engaged by the material. In this folder right now, we have our week 1 lecture notes, which I'm going to be going over with you, and then the Grammarly browser extension. If you guys don't already know about Grammarly, it's a wonderful little plugin that you guys can use, and I encourage you to use just to make sure that your online work is as exceptional as it can be. All right, and that is all I wanted to go over in the Blackboard course shell. Again, email me with any questions that you have. If you have any questions about the assignments, I'm not going to go over those in detail today. I'll probably do that as we progress during the weeks. However, if you have any questions, again, email me. My email information is located in your course announcements. It is also located, let's see, here in the virtual office. So in the virtual office is the message that I posted for you guys last week. Or maybe it was Sunday, Monday. And there is my email address. So email me, we can set up some time to chat, or I can get back to you via email. That's the quickest way to get a response. And I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you over the course of the term. This also has a link to the class question board. If you have any questions, click on the link, post your question. If you see that other students have posted a question that you know the answer to, feel free to answer it yourself. You don't have to wait for my answer. I will try to weigh in on the answer. I'll check the class question board at least weekly. And then I also want to draw attention to the student lounge. In an online learning environment, it's really hard to connect with your instructor, let alone other students in the class. And so this link gives you access to a way in which you can engage with your fellow students in a more casual way. This is not a place where I'm going into and I'm looking at what you guys are writing or what's going on unless somebody flags some communication is inappropriate or something for some reason. But if you're looking for help, if you'd like a tutor, if you'd like somebody to work with, maybe get a reading group together, this is the place where you can coordinate some of those things. All right, so that is your Blackboard course shell. We're going to go through a brief lecture as well of the material that you either have already read or will be reading this week. All right. So the topics discussed over the course of the week are going to be the family relationships framework, family development, gender, culture, and ethnicity in family functioning. And the first, what we're going to start out talking about is the family relationships framework. Important in considering the family relationships framework, or in adopting a family relationships framework, is the consideration of what is a family. This is what you guys are asked to consider in your discussion board this week. And my thoughts on the subject is that, you know, a family is a natural social system that occurs in a diversity of forms today and represents a diversity of cultural heritages. So embedded in society at large, it's shaped by a multitude of factors, such as its place in time and history, the race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status of the family, religious affiliation, and number of generations that the family has been in the country. There are many definitions of family. While most family members are related by descent, marriage, remarriage, or adoption, some are kin or affiliated kin, perhaps unrelated individuals who feel like family or relatives. Among Latino populations, compadres or grandparents are considered family members. And among some Japanese Americans, the living members of the extended family, as well as the deceased and yet to be born, are all traditionally considered family. Among the many traditional Native American tribes that the client is regarding as the fundamental family unit. And the major reason for difficulty in defining family is that we tend to think that a real family is the nuclear family or the traditional family. Oops, sorry about that. Right, so one of the major reasons that we have a hard time defining families, because in our culture we focus on the nuclear family or traditional family. However, family structure can include extended family, separated families, divorced families, remarried families, cohabitating families, and homosexual families. The way that family functions, or the family interactive patterns, establishes the rules, communicates and negotiates the differences among the family members. This has numerous implications for the development and well-being of its members. Families display a reoccurring pattern of interactional sequences in which all members participate. So I think what we really want to ask here is how you define family. And what is it that you are looking for when you are, sorry, I don't know why these keep scrolling. And what it is that you, and how it is that your definition of family might change in consideration of some of the factors that we're discussing. So when adopting a family relationship framework, what we want to take a look at are the narratives and assumptions that, that are implicit within a family's functioning. So the meaning, the understanding, and the assumptions that a family makes about the world reflect the narrative and the stories that the family has created about itself. Its relational resiliency, sorry, this is a new program, so I really thank you guys for your patience in me getting used to how to navigate the various elements of this new program. I don't know how to make it stay silent, sorry, or to stay in that. So the relational resiliency of a family may enable it to confront and manage disruptive experiences. So that resiliency is forged through a sense of adversity, not despite it. Those considered to be enabled families succeed at balancing the needs of their members and the family system as a whole. Gender roles and ideologies, cultural backgrounds, and social class considerations all play decisive roles in the behavioral expectations and attitudes of the various family members. Really what we want to ask ourselves, what is gender? Gender is the traditional masculine and feminine goals placed on men and women by society. Obviously, gendered individuals make up our traditional family structures currently. So when we consider gender, what we want to ask ourselves is, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? How do we learn these gender roles, or how are those communicated to us within our family? And do the roles of men and women change based on culture? So then we want to ask ourselves, what is culture? Culture refers to the cumulative deposit of knowledge, experience, beliefs, values, attitudes, meanings, and hierarchies. It also includes religion, notions of the time, spatial relations, families that live close or consider when family members live apart from one another, and the material objects and possessions acquired by a group of people in the course of generations through individual and group striving. That's a really broad concept. But what we want to understand is, how is it that our broader culture impacts the functioning of the family unit? You might want to consider whether or not each of us have our individual or own culture, or if our family has a unique culture in and of itself. Whether or not you believe if culture is created, who gets to create culture, all of those are interesting topics for thought when you want to consider what the influence that culture might have on individual functioning and family functioning. What we also want to know is, how do we go about challenging the influence of culture? What cultural groups are present in the classroom, in your classrooms currently, or in your university? And what is the difference between one's culture and one's ethnicity? All of these elements, as you might imagine, influence and impact the therapist and the type of therapy that you might do with an individual or family. So, adopting a relationship perspective, family therapists do not negate the significance of individual or intrapsychic processes. But family therapists really strive to take a broader view that the individual behavior is better understood, or more uniquely understood, as occurring within the primary network of a family's social system. This paradigm shift from the traditional way of understanding a person's behavior by looking at their own individual processes calls for a systemic epistemology in which feedback mechanisms, or feedback loops, are seen to operate to produce both stability and change within a family. When we look at those feedback loops, that's how we begin to understand how we as therapists can intervene in processes that are not working for families. The circular causality involved in what transpires between people within a family forces the family therapist to focus on understanding the family processes rather than seek kind of linear explanations. He did this, and so that's why I'm doing that. He said that, this is my response. What we're looking for is a broader understanding about types and patterns of behavior rather than solving very specific problems that a family comes in asking about. I went ahead and put up for you guys this comparison of individual versus family therapy. So if you aren't familiar with individual therapy, from a therapy from an individual lens differs significantly from a therapy from a family therapy lens. For an individual therapist, what they're looking for is they're looking to obtain an accurate diagnosis for an individual from the DSM-5. Individual therapists begin therapy right away. Therapy begins in the room immediately with that family or with that individual that comes in asking for help. It focuses on causes, purposes, and processes. And concern within the individual and experience. A concern is with the individual experience and the individual perspective. The family therapist that therefore serves to intervene to help the individual learn coping skills and strategies and techniques that might help solve that individual problem. However, a systems therapist, a family systems therapist, explores the family system for family processes and rules that are contributing to the underlying presenting problem. Family therapists might not begin therapy right away until they can invite in, let's say, parents or siblings or important others that are contributing to the presenting problem. And the focus of therapy is on improving those family relationships. That if we were to solve those family relationships, then those individual problems would also then be addressed as well. Systems therapists are largely concerned with transgenerational meanings or rules. Those are a concept in which we look at some of the messages that are that are transmitted intergenerationally and how those are impacting or perhaps contributing to the presenting problem. The family therapist largely intervenes to change the context within the family system so that the family itself can come together to resolve and address the presenting problem. Cybernetics is the study of methods of feedback or the feedback control within a system, especially the flow of information through feedback loops. I mentioned those earlier. When we look at reciprocal determinism, we're looking at a theory that was set forth by one of the seminal theorists in therapy, which is Albert Bandura. And reciprocal determinism states that a person's behavior is both influences and is influenced by personal factors and the social environment. This was a new concept for therapy because therapy really was thought of as being an individual or intrapsychic process. And when we started to look at the social environmental factors, this was really a brand new idea. While most family therapists adhere to some form of a systemic epistemology today, there is developing a little bit of a schism between those who operate from a first order to a second order cybernetic model. First order cybernetics looks strictly at communication. Second order cybernetics really is a view of observing the system in which the therapist, rather than the therapist attempting to describe the system by being an outside observer, the therapist is really a part of becomes a part of what is actually being observed and treated. The second order cybernetics, sorry. Let me find my way back to our slide here. So second order cybernetics represents kind of an increasingly influential theorist on constructivism and social constructivism. Different models of family therapy consider the identified patient in different ways. Each family therapist believes the symptom itself acts to actually stabilize the system and relieve family stress. Others viewed symptomatic behavior more as a reaction to family stressors than as either a protective solution to restore family balance. And in even another view, it is repeated but unworkable solutions that themselves become the problem in problematic family interactions. However, from kind of a postmodern perspective, breaking with the tradition of traditional cybernetic notions, symptoms are seen as oppressive, and the family is urged to unite to take back control of its members' lives from these burdensome symptoms. So, leaving this chapter, I really want you to perhaps leave you with this kind of food for thought. So if you take into consideration your own cultural identity, your race, your ethnicity, your gender, your religion, and think about, how does your family life, individual family culture, either confirm or challenge the stereotypes that are associated with your culture? So if a family therapist was working with you and your family, what are the things that they would notice that were similar or would be within line of your larger family culture? And what ways in which your family would break with that culture? And would that be important information for your therapist to know in intervening with your family and designing a treatment plan? Second section has to deal with family development, continuity versus change. The family life cycle perspective, or dividing family development into a series of stages through which each family inevitably passes, offers kind of an organizing theme for viewing the family as a system moving through time. Specific developmental tasks are expected to be accomplished at each stage en route. Family therapists, particularly structuralists and strategists, are especially interested in how families navigate transitional periods between family stages. Generations within a family have enduring, reciprocal, life-shaping impact on one another as they move through family life cycle stages. In this multi-generational view, continuity and change characterize family life as the family system progresses through transitions over time. While the progression is generally ordered and sequenced, certain discontinuous changes may be particularly disruptive. Socioeconomic status and cultural background influences the options, opportunities, and resources that are available to families for coping with unforeseeable demands and adaptation. Among immigrant families, migration presents an especially stressful set of circumstances that may be traumatic and negatively affect family life cycle development. So the appearance of symptomatic behavior in a family member during transitional points in the family life cycle may signal that the family is having difficulty in negotiating or navigating these changes during the family life cycle process. Intact families typically proceed chronologically through a series of family growth phases. Coupling, where partners are moving from interdependence to intradependence. Expansion, accommodating children. And later, contracting with one another as children move on. Old hierarchical boundaries between parents and children are likely to be replaced by a greater peer relationship as the children reach middle age. And then retirement, grandparenthood, widowhood, chronic illness and caregiving, all represent other major adaptational changes for the family system as parents reach old age. Alternative families, such as those led by single parents as a result of divorce, adoption, out-of-wedlock birth, donor insemination, or widowhood, or those for which remarriage has created a step family, inevitably experience disruption in the family life cycle before resuming their orderly development. Families led by gay or lesbian couples are also likely to experience life cycle stress as transitions similar to those of heterosexual couples, in addition to the unique challenges that their marginalized status has on them, and that their marginalized status in society impacts the children and the family as a whole. Importantly, children raised by gay or lesbian parents are apt to develop patterns of gender role behaviors similar to those developed by all other children. That was against a common belief or fear by those that was typically had, that we now dispel and recognize as oppressive to the LGBT family communities. So, food for thought on this section. I would like for you to consider the impact of natural disasters on family development. Hurricanes, tornadoes. How do you think that it would impact the development of the family system? And then contrast those ideas with the impact that natural disasters might have with man-made trauma, sexual assault, war, mugging, etc. How do you imagine that the family life cycle might be impacted differently by these external types of factors? And finally, what we're going to be talking about is diversity in family functioning. Culture, gender, and socioeconomic status are the key interrelated factors in shaping individual lives. Cultural diversity is an important part of American life, and family therapists have widened their focus from the family to include larger socio-cultural contexts that influence behavior. A multicultural emphasis urges therapists to be more culturally sensitive before undertaking assessments, forming judgments, or initiating interventions with families whose backgrounds are different from theirs. Otherwise, therapists risk misdiagnosing or mislabeling unfamiliar family patterns as abnormal or needing to be changed. Gaining a greater awareness of our own culturally based values, assumptions, and beliefs should help therapists work more effectively with families that vary from their own ethnic or cultural experience. A culturally specific emphasis asserts that importance of learning about culturally based family patterns of specific groups. So in regard to gender, men and women are reared with different expectations, experiences, attitudes, goals, and opportunities. And these differences influence later culturally prescribed role patterns in family relationships as well. Family therapists have only recently begun to fully recognize the impact of these kinds of early patterns on current family life. Feminists contend that psychological research and clinical practice have been filled with outdated patriarchal assumptions and offer a male-biased perspective of sex roles and gender-defined functions within a family. They reject certain cybernetic concepts, such as circular causality, because such concepts ultimately fail to acknowledge the differences in the power and control between men and women, and in effect blaming the victim for her victimization. The entry of women across all socioeconomic statuses in large numbers into the workforce has also helped break some long-held stereotypic views regarding the distribution of work, and family responsibilities between husband and wife. Gender-sensitive therapy is directed at empowering clients, male and female, to move beyond prescribed sex roles based on biological status to ones in which they can exercise their own individual choice. Social class considerations also influence family life cycles. Living in poverty, whether temporarily as part of a poverty patterns or extending over generations, may erode the family structure and create unorganized families or underorganized families. In poor families, life cycle progression is sometimes accelerated by teenage pregnancy, which limits the educational or financial security and future marital stability of the family members. Many therapists today assert a link between the professional values they hold regarding the important considerations of culture and gender in clinical work and the broader values of social justice. They connect clinical practice and the values of social equity and human rights in the community and throughout society as a whole. So therapists are continuing to take a more active role in social justice work as well. The final element for food for thought I wanted to leave you guys with is this thought exercise. Considering the idea of being a hidden minority, whether or not you have experience with this or not. How is it that some people feel that they are minorities in a particular setting, even though they may look like the rest of the group? This is typically experienced by people with a specific set of religious beliefs, gay people who are not yet out, or racial minorities who do not seem to identify with the stereotypes often attributed to their specific group. Why do you think it would be important to know as a family therapist what this experience was like, how the individual perceived the challenges, and how is it that they navigated themselves through those challenges? All right, that is the end of our lecture for week 1. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I was happy to have a chance to go over these important topics with you. Again, feel free to email me anytime with any questions that you have. We can set up a phone meeting or Adobe Connect meeting or even Zoom meeting. That's what you're being seen on today. And I'll be happy to connect with each and every one of you. And I look forward to working with you over the course of the next 8 weeks.